Well, it's been almost 5 months now since the Academic Staff Union of Universities, that's the umbrella body of the teaching staff of Nigerian public institutions. Well, since February the 14th, now ASUU has been on strike. It first announced a warning strike in yet another series of face-off between it and the federal government. And there had been negotiations between the union and the federal government, but that has all stalled, leaving Nigerian students helpless and desperate. It's also worthy of mention that ASUU has embarked on strikes 16 times since 1999, and this has now prompted vice chancellors across Nigerian universities to appeal to President Muhammadu Buhari to take charge and speed up the process of resolving the ongoing trade union disputes between ASUU as well as other unions in tertiary institutions in the country. But will President Buhari heed this call by the VCs, which was obviously prompted by the impact of the strike on both the students and the institutions? That's the crux of our next discussion now with public affairs commentator Bola Oba. Welcome to TVC Breakfast.
Morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your side. I see you have good company.
You're most welcome. Of course, you make it more interesting now.
And don't talk about
with your appearance.
Well, the red cap chief who has now decided to abandon red.
We have to diversify.
He calls it diversification,
Yes.
right?
We want Nigeria to diversify.
Now, talking about diversification, do you get a sense that even as academics, the people of ASUU, they've run out of imagination how to really tackle the problem of the Nigerian university?
I really want to not only laser in on ASUU, but talk to ourselves. And I'm very happy, very glad you are on this set this morning. I think it's now incumbent on the Nigerian elite to constitute a non-partisan team and have an engagement with the serious presidential hopefuls. We must let them know, because I've lost hope on Buhari's presidency. For me, it's as good as gone. We just have to manage the hemorrhaging before it goes. But look at every sphere of life in this country. Be it security, be it so ASUU is only a symptom of the panoramic rot that we see. But is actually incumbent, because the youngsters, the youths are engaged now in what I see to be effective polarization, what American political scholars call effective polarization, which is more bigotry, aggression, and that's what I see amongst the youth. And you don't get solutions like that. So I think it's incumbent on the Nigerian elite now, find sessions. We are not judging them. We just want to put some ideas that no society develops sustainably without some important things being in place. You cannot have your educational system in this kind of sclerotic, sclerosis is even better. This is total stagnation. And the kids are there. Some of us who are into human capital development at the level of artisanal and skills development and enterprise mentorship, we can even see that it's becoming more challenging to even get their attention now for their own self-development. And the very few who seem to be driven by passion and patriotism, they are wrongly, they will abuse anybody, you know.
So you still solicit for more dialogue, and you don't think ASUU has been, you think ASUU has been rigid in its stance so far?
I think one has to be very lenient with ASUU in how one examines the ongoing furore or the sort. And the reason I really want to be lenient with ASUU is that you must fight the Battle of Alamo at a point in your life on the things you believe in. It's not as if the ASUU chieftains and the ASUU apparatchiks are, for me, saints. It's just that about time somebody made the people in government came to the realization, look, a radio station called me from Akure yesterday, and I told them some of the things some of us need to be telling the Nigerian public. One, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, to whose legacy free education is much attached to a point of idolatry today, was an initial antagonist of free education. You know why? Because it was Paala Yonde and Chief Ajasi, who as young educators, after the Second World War, went to England to go and improve themselves. And it was then that the first Labour government came into being in England. And that Labour government initiated free education and free service. And when they came back, in their auditioning session, they suggested it to Chief Awolowo. But as a man who was once bankrupt in his life, Awolowo knew well enough that he could not endeavor to do anything that was not, that he had no resources to finance. You know what Awolowo did? Until they convinced him. And Awolowo then told them that he was going to do what was unprecedented then. Awolowo was the first premier of any self-government in Nigeria that women in the rural areas came to Ibadan to protest half-naked against. You know why they protested? Awolowo tasked women in the rural areas to finance free education. And he was telling the women when they were protesting, there is no free meal anywhere.
Please translate that so those who don't understand.
Because
of the future of your children.
The future of your children. It's about time those of us who have platforms like this, who are privileged to be on platforms, it's about time we told our public there is no free meal anywhere in the world, not even in Freetown.
Now the question is, that you mentioned Awolowo, I thought you were even going to go to the idea of budgetary allocation, because what the government is saying in the crisis with ASUU is that, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources and so on, which many people believe is nonsense, because education, we don't have money for education, what would you have money for?
Because you've not prioritized it.
Yes, you've not prioritized it. Is that the problem? Is it a matter of the elite illiteracy or elite hypocrisy that they don't realize that this education matter is so important that we need to get our young ones well educated? Because as we see, I agree with you, that the generation that we are seeing, I call them the NSAS generation, they understand little about Nigerian history. They understand little about Nigerian sociology. They're either locked up in their churches or in their mosques or in their tribes. And they don't even understand their tribes. They don't understand their churches. They don't even understand their mosques. And they go about with all of this. And then we have a system where the government itself is not aware that education is about values and it's about resources.
Investment, indeed.
Everything that can go wrong seems to be going wrong. On the side of the intelligentsia, we have not established, and when I say intelligentsia, I mean those who are in government and those of us who are not in government. Let's be very honest with ourselves. If as a society, if as an elite, we have accentuated the importance of education, ironically, at the individual level, we will go and borrow, we will go and do anything. In fact, one of the reasons why corruption is so endemic in our society today is that people want to give their children a future better than theirs. And you see people in level 9, level 10 sending their children to Canada, to England, and ostensibly that is not matching the ostensible salary to the resources with which they pay. So we know the importance of education at the individual level. But as is typical with the black man anywhere in the world, we don't know the importance of systems. And you can barely solve any problem sustainably without building systems. Until we have a systemic way to let education, and the beauty of education is that as a phenomenon, it has the innate or inherent ability, organic ability to even sustain itself.
It takes
But
me back.
because we want to pretend that we want to give people free education, and the education is not even there, we don't prioritize the budgeting for valuable education in our budgeting system. We are so much in a mess. And the kids, we have to be very liberal with them. Let's be very honest with ourselves. When I was growing up as a boy in Mushin, reading Reader's Digest, Time Magazine, Newsweek Magazine, The Economist, you could get ideas. You could easily choose where you wanted to get ideas for. Some were reading James Aliches and all the sorts. Those of us, America was the ultimate. But look at what is happening now as a result of this revolution that could be put to good use, because everybody is in a
bubble.
It's in a bubble.
All right. So
you only listen to the
take
voices similar to yours. And
yes.
the best thing you do to those whose opinions are different from yours
is abuse them.
I want to take you back to, you spoke about the Awolowo era now, the free education that was practiced then. Okay, so now, still on the issue of how much value have strike brought to the system that we want to better. Some have said perhaps the argument now, because investment seems to be a global problem, not just in Nigeria. Some have said, can't the lecturers or can't the university system toe a different line to generate this income from within themselves? In the Awolowo era, now there was a level of university autonomy that we don't seem to be seeing now. So if the lecturers continue to clamor for more finances now, more income, more salaries, what will happen to that autonomy of universities that is also important, if not more so?
You see, one thing I need to quickly say before I give examples to back the point I want to make is that I'm not here to support any of the two sides. But my emotional predisposition is more engaging of the ASUU crowd. Not because they are saints, the same tertiary institutions where they abuse our children, they sell handouts, we've seen the worst of it. And these people are not saints. But having said that, I want to speak now as somebody whose entrepreneurial persona, whose social entrepreneurial persona engages the tertiary institution system in Nigeria, if we could call it a system. Number one, we must look beyond the ostensible contention between ASUU and the federal government to say federal government went to buy a software called EPIS. Nobody bothered to test that software. They celebrated it elaborately and launched it. And suddenly, we ultimately have found now that EPIs have so many glitches and lacunae. When this contention between ASUU and the federal government commenced, the Nigerian university specialists wrote UTAS, their own software. The federal government is paying for EPIS.
Yes.
They wrote UTAS. UTAS has solved some of the problems that EPIS could not solve in the management of universities. And somebody in the federal government, somebody negotiating on behalf of the federal government is not even giving them the encouragement to say, you know what, let's even allow them to use this for a while and we will keep a watch. You see how you could push people into disillusionment. I'm talking now as somebody who has an entrepreneurial persona that engages. Look, you will go to many of our tertiary institutions, some of the most sophisticated equipment on the face of the earth. Some of the equipment, I have a particular school that we want to engage with now. Our target as a social entrepreneur, my target is just to train 1,000 Nigerian youths to be able to use what is called the CNC machine. The CNC machine, you could make just about anything industrial with it. And there are Nigerians volunteering. Yesterday, somebody told me a Nigerian super designer in America, General Motors, wants to come home and volunteer to just spend about 3 months training these kids. I have another one in Land Rover. But about 60% of the parts of Land Rover, that guy chisels out for the company. He wants to come home and train young Nigerians. But you know what? We have those equipment. We have a disillusioned workforce. The tertiary institution, lecturers, instructors, or whatever, and yet our diaspora has some of the richest.
This amount of brains. How do you quantify that?
Nobody is trying to connect the dots, as the Americans will say. Are we this intellectually lazy, or is it a curse? That's some of the questions I ask myself. Bola, you just keep on doing what you have seen to work in other societies. Maybe some people are, and this is not about partisanship. You can abuse people forever. You can say this thing forever. The system that works is not only built around personalities, they are built around developing an army of skilled personnel. Personality is different from personnel. Anybody?
You made some good points here. Where does the private sector come in here? Because, in the US, a lot of the universities there get a lot of private funding. A lot of it from helping, doing work for the society, what they call it, corporate responsibility. It makes profits running to trillions of naira. And then it gathered people together because they did some medical things that did not amount to 20 million naira. And then we have to celebrate them, whereas they made this amount of money out of the same economy. And I think that it is high time we decided whether we're supposed to tax our corporate people in a sense, in a what you call education tax. I know we have some of it going around.
You have education tax.
We have it, but we need to make it more better monitored and better accounted for.
Let me even speak to that. It was through one of the many embroglios of ASUU and the federal government under Abacha that the ASUU leadership came up with the idea of education tax. Any company in Nigeria now, I think it's 2% or 2.5% of your net margin, net profit is. Now, ASUU came up with the idea. The idea was found to be good. Immediately they started implementing the idea, and they noticed that the amount it brought in was so big. You know what the federal government did? The federal government arrested it and made it an agency of the federal government called Tet Fund today.
Tet Fund.
Let's be honest with ourselves. Tet Fund is a major, impactful agency in our public tertiary institutions. We cannot write that off. But the level of leakage and corruption that is systemic in Nigeria is also plaguing that. But like you rightly said, let me come to the issue of private sector. The private sector is largely, and I'm a private sector operator, the culture that our children are better melodramatizing now. I say melodramatizing. The culture of hammer. Now.
Yes.
Immediate gratification. They learned it from those of us who are their parents. Too.
Of course.
You know why they learned it from those? An average Nigerian entrepreneur now is praying that somebody will become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and he will become the information minister or the chief press secretary. And because he knows me now, I've made contract. He will give me contract. We are not thinking about value creation, value innovation. Look, let me tell you a mess I'm in now that is challenging, but it's still a fantastic opportunity. About 1.5 years ago, I rallied Nigerians from California, USA, Los Angeles, California, USA, to Canberra, Australia, to come together. Let's find a way. These kids, you have good
Engage
ideas.
them.
You have good ideas that will empower them, like skills training, especially in science-related skills training. You know, from bricklaying to automotive mechatronics to...
And we don't see them in our present structure.
If any society does not have such skills, you can never be a functional society. You can never be. As some of us have been around now. Look, and I say, okay, rally people, and people say, well, because of you, we just know your wahala about overbelief in Nigeria. No, we then got some celebrities together. When we got those celebrities together, let's dramatize how to build a house from foundation to roofing, using major celebrities. I don't want to be mentioning names on your I'm telling you, as we speak now, we have more than 20 terabytes of recording now of major celebrities building houses, you know, doing pong-pong, shoveling and being put through the basic norms of. We have more than 20 terabytes of content now, but you see, to even get Nigerian companies to sponsor.
Right. So in answer to Sam's question, as in, shouldn't this be made, mandatory? Shouldn't we have a system in place, or is that also living in a fool's paradise?
Let me sadly tell you this. Over-legislaturing sometimes can have a negative effect. China started doing far better under Deng Xiaoping than under Chairman Mao. Because under Chairman Mao, they were pushing out too much restrictive edicts. Deng Xiaoping just wanted, be it a white cat or a black cat, I just want a cat that kills the rat.
Well, the thing about the thing you are saying is very important. The issue of we are giving instance of Deng and Mao. One was a visionary, the other was a manager. You have to have both of them.
Fantastic.
You have to work for them. Have to work together. In the other one, you're talking about the artisanal culture, which is very important. The French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution started first as a scientific revolution. They were visionaries. Then you had the Industrial Revolution did not come as one big swoop. It was people who were discovering spokes here.
Democratizing.
People who were fixing one little iron. People who were discovering little things. They were all coming together. And it took over a century before the whole idea of the revolution, what we call Industrial Revolution, took place. So it takes a process. But we are not interested in any process. We just want what they call obetojino. We want the soup to be done. That is it. The parents are there. They want their children to get A's without working for them. If you hear, I think one day we'll bring Oloyede of JAM to this show to come and talk about some of the problems going on with values and parents who want their children to beat the system in order to gain admission.
It's still the system. It's still the system. I'm also, looking at, okay, so we're seeing options now, more and more options. Some have said it's the rise of private universities now. Have they been a panacea, or have they just been more of a diversionary, presence now to the problem we have in our education system?
Any government that will solve this ASUU, this persistent federal government ASUU imbroglio, would have to do one of the things that, as a Conservative Party member in the UK, I was schooled in. It was initially appalling to my intellectual persona, but I then suddenly realized that the government must come to the realization that, the government alone cannot solve the problem of education. We've seen it in the primary school level, We've seen it at the secondary school level. But the government must find a way of operating a grant system that will make those people who have the wherewithal to go far and further to have a supply chain that will push them. But we have to let people know this is the only country on the face of the earth where I know the governments, local, state, and federal, will invest in you to become somebody. And when they invest in you, you just believe you don't owe the society anything, and the next opportunity, you are jackpotting. No remorse that you have to give something back. No society runs like that.
Remember, talking about Awolowo and the Western region, Awolowo gave a lot of scholarships to people and made people, once you finish your education, you come to the Western region. That's what made the Western region
very vibrant.
The model. With Debo and so on in those days.
Yes.
It made it the model of bureaucracy in Nigeria. It has not been matched since. Because they brought the brains, they made the brains, they brought the brains back.
There was a lot to attract them to come back.
We incentivize you to actualize your intellectual persona, but you know what? You hold something to give back to where you also got powered. Look, we create doctors. Oh, and I don't blame them because it's the system. Everybody's there. We create doctors at a rate that is phenomenal by third world standard. But you know what? Some people will send delegates from Saudi Arabia. Some people will send people from the NHS in England.
Come and take them away. And we're looking.
We just
They came here last year. They came here last year. Saudi Arabia came here last year to come and poach. And our governments were looking.
No,
and you know the government
were all lining up.
The government even have the will to even make them stay. Oh, no. What do we have to keep them?
You know, it's the fault of the government.
It's the fault of the government.
There's no policy to stop that. And you know, you cannot stop it by just wanting to be autocratic about the way you stop it. You will stop it by incentivizing them and also rallying up the people. We only think that human beings work for money. I was shocked along the line when I started reading widely about 15, 20 years ago on social entrepreneurialism that most people who help to foment changes or translate the idealism of visionaries to
what we can see, right.
Most of them don't work for money.
No.
They don't work for money, and there are bigger prizes in life than money. Exactly. Legacy is one. I tell myself, well,
pride is another. Sentiment.
I tell myself, well, about this age, is it what we? If I eat more than 3,000 naira worth of food today, I'm in crisis. Tomorrow morning, I will be running. You see, I've lost weight. It's not easy. 1.5 years of my life, I had to manage losing 50. Look, people seek success. They think it's all about eating. When you start
poverty mentality in Nigeria that makes you think so.
When you start eating well enough, you will know that you have a liability
your problem is
to also burn it.
The older you get and the richer you get, the less you need.
The less your system is ready to take.
The less you need.
And yet that is when in a society and in a culture where we feed people to kill them, we don't know the meaning of portion rationing. And because you are the man of the house, they will give you...
Who must be the biggest?
Soup here, rice here, meat here, fish here.
But everything will be there. And then you eat and then they take you to the hospital.
Right. But you know, the other day, really, fascinating direction that this is really a systematic issue, really. No one sector is immune from the failure in the system. But the other day we were speaking with the ASUU national president and we asked him a question about, okay, so a group of private people or private sector now, a group of individuals, offered to raise some crucial billions of naira to help the alien university system, and you turned it down, and he justified it that wasn't the solution they were looking for. That this was what they wanted the federal government, to do this and that. He was very resolute in his stance, but people have still asked that. Okay, so you need monies to revive the system, and then you're turning it down, even though it's not from the federal government?
You know, one of the reasons that we don't get to populate our idea scope, as I call it in Nigeria, the public environment with value innovation, is because sometimes maybe it's as a result of our backgrounds or our culture. Sometimes we just get too fixated with what worked yesterday and may have been outdated today. You see, and that was why I was saying earlier on that ASUU is not sane. You know, for me, it's not a case of saints and devil. It's a case of all of us missing the big point. And as ASUU too, I told you about how the idea that ultimately culminated to become TED Fund came about. It was during one of these embroglios. I think it's about time ASUU also came to the realization that the federal government cannot provide a sustainable solution to the problem of financing, funding of education in Nigeria. And about time they engaged with some creative and value innovative ideas. I'm choosing my words, or my phraseology is well enough here. Value innovative ideas about working with the market. Nigeria is not poor. And I should know to tell you confidently that Nigeria is not poor. I was telling people about 3 years ago that, you know what, with proper leadership and good ideationing, you could make Nigerians who never thought they can be estate developers to be estate developers. There is a 50-plot estate developing somewhere in Mowe now that 300 plus Nigerians here, and 70 Nigerians contribute money every month to build in Mowe. My own contribution was just idea and to match whatever anybody is contributing. And they own it. It's not Bala Abbas Estate. It's owned in their name. I went back to school to go and study, to go and do a professional diploma in cooperative management. Not because I like education, no, but because there are new ideas there, and there are ideas proliferating from all over the world. And you cannot be in Lagos and be fighting the battle of Lagos, or in Abuja and be fighting the battle of Abuja with the federal government as though you are the only crusader in the world. Some of the things you want to kill yourself for, some people have solved it in Timbuktu. Ironically, Timbuktu may be a dead end of the world. Ulaanbaatar may be the dead end of the world, but some ideas may have generated from Ulaanbaatar worked well in Rio, and Rio has the same characteristics. Look,
so it's about trends.
And we also have to be amenable to ideas that are not endemic to our culture, but that we've seen evidentially to have solved problems in other parts of the world.
Exactly. That is one of the problems with ASUU. And that was the first question I asked you, that there seems to be a fixation on strikes, and they have not come up with innovative ideas, ways by which they can break out of the mold. She talked about the idea, it was broached by the Berekete.
Yes, indeed.
So let us do crowdfunding. And they're saying that that's not the way we operate. Is it? Why don't you engage them? How do we make it work for us, rather than that's not the way we operate? I mean, it's just like telling a student, a professor telling a student that this is your idea, this is not how I told you to write it. Whereas,
so what's the answer?
Whereas you've done a very good essay, just because it's not the way you think.
Was taught.
Yeah, yes, that is it.
You see,
and then you take it outside and you become something with the idea, and the professor is saying, no, you didn't get the idea, you didn't know what to do.
We are not absolving the federal government, because I've used enough opportunities I had to say we have a government that may seem to be acting like it does not know the value of education, human capital development especially. Because at the level of tertiary education, you are consolidating the skills that will engage the world on your behalf. It's like having a national team that, and up there, when you know you have to engage the world, somebody is not even as the owner of the club, or is not even quite concerned about their welfare, and the people who are running the team too suddenly just believe that the only way, when the team has the potential to engage its fans. Most of the teams you see, the money they get from selling those imitation shirts give them much more money than the money
from the original.
We must just look beyond what worked.
That's what China is rising on. Doing imitation of America. That's it, imitation technology.
Absolutely. And the market is, of course, ever ripe in Africa.
It's still the only reason. I was in England recently, and all my friends who are Yoruba Nation, avid Yoruba Nation, this thing, Bola, I don't know why. And I said, how can you people be in the UK? You campaigned against Brexit. I could see those of you campaigning, you campaigned against Brexit. And one of your arguments then was that Brexit EU presented a bigger
umbrella,
market.
Yes.
And now you want me living in Nigeria to campaign for the breakup of a 200 million plus market to come to a 60 million person market. Something is wrong. Your values must not be discordant. What you believe in Mongolia should be similar to what you believe in Mushin. That is life. So if you campaign against Brexit in UK, let me also, not because Nigeria is the ideal place for me, but incrementally, we will get the restructuring we need. And some of them are still angry with me, and I respect their opinion because, it's sometimes disillusioning.
It's just like that. So it's not only in the UK, it's also in the US, where they keep thinking, they turn the social media into the reality in Nigeria, and they don't know that Nigeria is different, and they think that they own the country.
And you know the irony? The amount of monies that these people send to Nigeria for courses that will not positively impact the lives of people they care about, apart from, we see the $25 billion that they say we send to relations,
the remittances and
paying for school fees and whatever. But you know what? The amount they send for these Yoruba Nation courses, and some people are even 419 them
Biafran courses.
And Biafran courses. And some people are even 419 them by saying they want to do a tutu, they want to do this thing, and they send thousands of pounds for that.
All right. Well, a safe place to rest our conversation on. This is really a burning issue. We can go on and on.
Go and look for your red cap.
Time is not
we have
He has spoken about trends.
Diversity.
He has spoken about
innovation. You know why?
Going with the flow. Let's not start him off.
I told somebody, I said, if Obafemi Awolowo was alive, he would have left the Awo cap. You know why? That cap, when I returned from the diaspora, was selling for 13,000 naira. Now it's selling for 45,000 naira. Right. This is typically Jebuka. And this is very less than 8,000 naira.
It's purely common sense.
It's
purely common sense.
And the majority of the money goes to check. This money must stay in Nigeria.
Well, thanks so much. Always a refreshing time hearing from you.